Do you know what's great about today? It's a snow day. I'm here under the blanket. Got about 3 inches of snow. And what's even more great about today is that bad weather days I used to hate them because I'd still have to get up and do my exercise, and I push myself to do it in the cold and the rain and English disgustingness, or I'd make myself go to the gym, and gyms are always packed on bad weather days, and there's all these sweaty, hot, stuffy, ugh. And you know what I'm going to do today? Pretty much going to sit on the sofa under my blankie, trying not to be too annoyed by the cats. Might go out and check on the horses every now and then I'm going over to for a Sunday roast. Our in-laws live in Colorado as well, so they're English as well, and they appreciate Sunday roast. Like most Americans don't understand that, but so they're cooking for us, and it's just so wonderful to be able to relax all day and then just go and eat a load of food and then relax all day again. I never used to be able to do that. I still appreciate it. It's lovely. All right, I've got an email here, and I don't know who it's for, but she's Danish. I know that much. Hi Tabitha, my dietitian in the Danish treatment centre I'm at says that not everyone who has a restrictive eating disorder has a genetic component. She started to go off on a tangent about eating disorders being about something else that I have to figure out what it is. And I said that I believe that an eating disorder is not about something else, it's just an eating disorder caused by whatever the brain causes that, not a reaction to emotional turmoil. It's just that I've been trying for nearly 6 years to figure out what it's all about. My emotions have caused me to use this kind of coping, trying to control my food, and all the while just being slightly underweight most of the time, yet very sick in my head. It just makes a lot of sense to me that if eating disorders are not about something else, it just makes a lot of sense to me if eating disorders are not about something else, there may be a trauma hidden underneath, and that is triggered by the beginning of energy deficit, but that's not why you have an eating disorder. So in my mind, it makes sense that if you have to deal and heal with those types of things also, such as OCD habits or the neurorewiring, but they are not why the eating disorder happened, and they are treating the effects of the eating disorder, not the disorder. They are either just issues you don't also have or coping mechanisms caused by the disorder. It doesn't make sense to me if an eating disorder is a reaction to stress or coping strategy with whatever turmoil there was before, because then everyone who has ever had turmoil or stress in their life would have an eating disorder, which is everyone on earth. But if what she says is right, then not everyone with restrictive eating disorder has a genetic component, then it can't be like you say, an genetic and biological cause, which can be reversed by getting out of energy deficit. Then I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. I just can't think my way out. It makes sense to me if the nutritional rehabilitation is what gets you out of the eating disorder, and the neural rewiring is about unlearning the coping strategies and habits that you got while you were sick to try and cope with the disordered thoughts and to explain to yourself why it's necessary to eat less to get yourself out of the web. But also, treat the disorder. Oh, I can't understand this bit. Every treatment professional I've met in Denmark just seems to put it the other way around, as if the psychological things were there first and you use the eating disorder to cope with them. I'm really confused, and I badly want to know what this is so that I can treat that and not try and think my way out of working off whatever mind shit everyone deals with all the time. Because that is an endless learning process and doesn't treat my eating disorder. It's also really hard to work on general life learning when you have an eating disorder consuming your life. I'm really confused as to what does treat it and what the hell a restrictive eating disorder is. I hope that makes sense. Thanks for your content. That gives me a lot. So some of that was confusing, but I'm getting the gist. You're basically saying that your dietitian says that you've got some hidden underneath psychological trauma that you developed an eating disorder to cope with, which is the bog standard, very old-fashioned psychoanalytical view of eating disorders that I absolutely don't agree with. Of course you can have had trauma and have an eating disorder, and many people do, unfortunately. But those are two coexisting things. You do have to have the genetics and the predisposition for an eating disorder to have one. That's how genetics work. And they should be treated separately, in my opinion. So if you had trauma, that's horrible, but that should be treated separately. The eating disorder should still be treated with a food first treatment method, getting out of energy deficit. Many people, like myself, have never had trauma. I'm lucky. And so it was really quite annoying to me when people were always telling me that, or doctors were like, what's the underlying reason that you're doing this to yourself? Like, fuck off. like, I don't know. And that's why I never went into treatment, because I could never answer that question. It just pissed me off, actually. Because, like, I don't have one. And then when you say that, when you say to somebody, I don't have any trauma in my life, they sort of don't believe you. And they're like, everybody has a bit of trauma. I honestly don't actually think I do. Not unless you count my mum making me go to bed at 9 o'clock and not letting me stay up later and watch whatever I wanted to eat. I mean, that pissed me off as a child, but I don't count that as trauma. Some people actually count that as trauma. So I kind of think like we've got a bit of different spectrum going on here. And I still say I did not have trauma as a child. I had very typical things that sometimes I was pissed off at my parents. But it's usually because I was pissed off at my parents because they wouldn't let me do stupid shit. And they like made me just, have a bedtime and stuff like that. But that, honestly, no, that is not trauma, and that did not cause my eating disorder. And I never believed that it did, and that's actually why I didn't go into treatment, because it just pissed me off when people try to insinuate that I was trying to hide something repressed and then not believe me when I said I wasn't. And so I'm not saying the trauma and eating disorders don't coexist. They do. And if you've had trauma, then of course the numbing effect of an eating disorder, when you have an eating disorder as well, that numbing emotional effect they can mingle together, and then they can feed off each other. And that's really bad when that happens. And it does make it harder, because not only do you have an eating disorder and all those usual thoughts to deal with, but you know that your eating disorder actually kind of like makes you feel better about the thing that you're traumatized about. So of course, that's another reason that you don't want to let go of your eating disorder. That absolutely happens. And so, though, in that situation, you've got to treat the trauma, yes, and you've got to treat the eating disorder with food. Separate types of treatment. Like, go to a therapist for the trauma, eat a load of fucking food for the eating disorder. Separate treatment. Anyway, so lady from Danish lady, I hope that answers your question. In short, I'm going to say, well, it sounds like from your email you already are not wanting to listen to what your dietitian is saying. So I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to say just like trust yourself, because you're probably right.